Good morning ma, welcome to all for online education commerce theory part for the first year's English medium. The chapter that we are dealing is the ninth chapter, that is the source of business finance. Okay, in this chapter we are dealing with the section that is the second session of this chapter. So in the previous session we have discussed about the equity shares, and in this session we are going to discuss about the preference shares. So let us see what are the preference shares. The capital raised by the issue of preference shares is called preference share capital. Okay, whatever the capital that has been raised by the issue of preference shares, when we are raising the capital by issuing the preference shares, then that capital is known as preference share capital. Preference shareholders have fixed rate of dividend. Here the rate of dividend for the preference shareholders is generally fixed. Okay. Whereas in the equity shareholders, they don't have the fixed dividend, but the preference shareholders will have the fixed rate of dividend out of the net profit of the company. Okay, if the company gets a net profit, from that profit the dividend is given to the fixed rate of dividend, 10%, 15%, 30%, whatever that percentage, that fixed rate of dividend is given to the preference shareholder who are holding the preference shares. For them we are giving the dividend, that is the fixed dividend, before any dividend declared to equity shareholder. So first the dividend is declared to the preference shareholder, then after the dividend whatever left, whatever the profit is left, whatever the net profit is left, that is given to the equity shareholders. So first the preference shareholders will get the fixed rate of dividend, receiving their capital after the claims of the company creditors have been settled. So when the preference shareholders will receive the dividend means, first the creditors of the company, creditors means company ఎవరికైతే బాకీ ఉందో వాళ్ళు కంపెనీకి ఏమవుతారంటే క్రెడిటార్స్ అవుతారు. ఏబీసీ కంపెనీ ఇఫ్ ఎక్స్ అనే పర్సన్కి బాకీ ఉంది, ఏబీసీ కంపెనీ ఎక్స్ అన్న పర్సన్కి బాకీగా ఉంటే ఎక్స్ ఏమవుతాడంటే ఏబీసీ కంపెనీకి క్రెడిటార్ అవుతాడు. సో ఫస్ట్ క్రెడిటార్స్కి పే చేసినాక తర్వాత ప్రిఫరెన్స్ షేర్ హోల్డర్స్కి ఫిక్స్డ్ డివిడెండ్ పే చేసేస్తారు. దెన్ ఆఫ్టర్వర్డ్స్ వాట్ ఎవర్ ద ప్రాఫిట్, నెట్ ప్రాఫిట్ ఈజ్ దేర్, in that net profit the amount is distributed to the dividend is distributed to the equity shareholders. So types of preference shares, what are the types of preference shares are there? Let us see. Cumulative preference shares. So the dividend is collected if it is not paid during the year. If in the year 2020 if the dividend is not given to the preference shareholder of this type, cumulative type, so they will collect the dividend in the next year. Okay, there will not left the dividend. Okay, they will receive the dividend, they will collect the dividend from the company in the next year, in the 2021. Okay, so the type of preference shares are known as cumulative preference shares. Next, non-cumulative preference shares. Under non-cumulative preference shares, the dividend does not accumulated. Accumulated means collected. Okay, what's the meaning of accumulation means? Collected. The dividend is not collected here. Okay, the dividend does not collected under non-cumulative preference shares. The dividend is collected under cumulative preference shares. If they are not paid in 2020, they have to pay in the future in 2021. The company has to pay the dividend to the preference shareholder if there are cumulative. If there are non-cumulative, there is no need to pay. Participating preference shares. So participating means those preference shares which have a right to participate in the company's surplus. సర్ప్లస్ మీన్స్ ఎక్సెస్ ప్రాఫిట్. ఎక్సెస్ ప్రాఫిట్, ఎక్కువ ప్రాఫిట్స్ వచ్చినప్పుడు ఆ అమౌంట్ని ఏమంటామంటే సర్ప్లస్ అమౌంట్ అంటాం. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ వీ ఎక్స్పెక్టెడ్ ద ప్రాఫిట్ ఆఫ్ 20 crores but we got the profit of 49 crores. Then that amount, whatever the amount is there, 29 crores excess amount, that amount is considered as a surplus amount. Excess amount ni surplus antam. Okay, so participating preference shares, those preference shares which have a right to participate in the company's surplus after paying dividend to equity shareholders and preference shareholders. Okay, first the company will pay the dividend to the creditors, after that it will pay to the preference shareholders, then after it will pay to the equity shareholders. If there is any surplus amount remain, then that amount is taken by the participating preference shareholders who are holding these type of preference shares. Means which type of participating type of preference shares who are holding, they will get this type of dividend. Non-participating preference shares, they does not enjoy the right to participate in the profit of the company. They will not participate in collecting any excess amount, means any surplus amount of the company. Convertible preference shares means these shares can be converted into equity shares within a specified time period, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it may be the time duration. After that, that preference shares will be converted into equity shares. Means the person who holding convertible preference shares ఎవరైతే హోల్డ్ చేస్తారో, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ వాళ్ళ టైం డ్యూరేషన్ 2 years ఉందనుకోండి, 2 years తర్వాత వాళ్ళు ఈక్విటీ షేర్ హోల్డర్స్ అయిపోతారు, అంటే వాళ్ళు ఓనర్స్ అయిపోతారు. ఎస్, ఈక్విటీ షేర్ హోల్డర్స్ ఎంతమంది ఉన్నారో వాళ్ళతో పాటు వీళ్ళు కూడా ఓనర్స్ అవుతారు ఆ కంపెనీకి. సో దోస్ టైప్స్ ఆఫ్ షేర్స్ ఆర్ నోన్ యాజ్ కన్వర్టబుల్ ప్రిఫరెన్స్ షేర్స్. నాన్ కన్వర్టబుల్ ప్రిఫరెన్స్ షేర్స్ మీన్స్ దే ఆర్ నాట్ కన్వర్టెడ్ ఇంటూ ఈక్విటీ షేర్స్. redeemable preference shares, those shares the investment on which are to be paid back to the respective holder after the completion of certain period of time. So whatever the investment that is done by the preference shareholder, there will get the investment amount. Okay, there will get the investment amount after a certain time period, after the completion of certain time period, there the holder will get the total investment amount. If he invested 10 lakhs rupees, he will get the 10 lakhs rupees immediately after the completion of a certain time period. Next, irredeemable preference shares. Irredeemable preference shares, the shares does not carry any fixed period of repayment, so there is no need of repaying anything in case of irredeemable. Remedial preference shares, irremedial preference shares. So in case of irremedial preference shares, there is no need to repay the amount. There is no need to repay the amount in case of irremedial preference shares. Next one, merits. So fixed rate of dividend and safety of investment. So what is the merit advantage means? There is a fixed rate of dividend and safety of investment. Whatever you are investing, you will get back after a completion of a certain period of time. Next, useful for those investors who want to get fixed rate of return with a comparatively low risk, who don't want to take risk and they want to get a fixed rate of dividend. For them it was very comfortable, so those investors will prefer the preference shares. Okay, it is a superior security over equity shares. It is a superior security, it is more secure because it will have a fixed rate of dividend regularly, so it is more superior security than the equity shares. Payment of the fixed rate of dividend to preference shares may enable a company to declare high rate of returns, high rate of dividend for the equity shareholders in good times. First the company will pay the amount to the creditors, after that it will be pay the fixed dividend to the preference shareholders. So after paying to the preference shareholders in the good time, if the company got the more profit, at that time the equity shareholders will get the good returns due to first only receiving the amount by the preference shareholders. Next one, preference capital does not create any type of charge against the assets of the company. So preference capital does not create any charges, okay, against the assets of the company, because they are not the owners of the company, so they are not going to charge against the assets of the company. So these are the advantages of the preference shares. Now let us see the disadvantages. Those are the limitations of the preference shares. Not suitable for those who are willing to take risk and are interested in higher returns. Means who want to take risk and want to get a higher returns, for them it is not useful, because for them equity shares are good, because they are taking the risk and they are interested to get the high returns. But in the preference shares the returns are not high and the risk is also very less. Preference capital dilutes the claims of the equity shareholders over the assets of the company. So what these preference shareholders will do, preference capital will do means it will not double, it will not the preference capital double, it will double the claim of the equity shareholder over the assets of the company. So preference shareholders also bring the capital. So when the preference capital is brought, the company will purchase more assets so that the equity shareholders can claim more amount over the assets of the company. Means when they are selling the some assets which are very old assets, then the equity shareholders will get the more amount from that assets. The rate of dividend on preference shares is higher than the rate of interest on debentures. So the rate of dividend, the dividend rate is very more to preference shares as compared to the rate of dividend on preference share is higher, very high than the rate of interest on debentures. So debentures also a type of way to rise the capital. So on the debentures we are going to pay the interest. How we are paying dividend to the preference shareholder? For the debenture holder we will pay the interest. So when we compare the debenture holder and preference shareholder, the preference shareholder only getting the high rate of returns, as the dividend on the shares is to be paid only when the company earns the profit. So the preference shareholders will get the dividend only when the company earns the profit. If the company is not earning any profit, there is no any kind of fixed dividend to the preference shareholders. Okay, there is no assured return for the investor, thus their share may not be very attractive to the investor. So this is not such much attractive for the investor, because if the company get the profit, then only there will get the dividend. If there is no profit, then there is no dividend. And one more thing, that the preference capital does not create any charges against the assets of the company. So if the company purchase any assets, for that also they are not getting anything. Okay, if the company purchased asset and it has sold for some profit, even though at that time also the preference shareholders are not getting any kind of dividend. So the preference shareholders will get the dividend fixed when the company earns the profit, then only they will get the fixed rate of dividend. So this is about the disadvantages of preference shares. Let us meet in the other session with the differences between the equity shares and the preference shares. Okay, right.